Right. That was a term I think not just me, but like many people come away from your restaurant having a mind like blowing moment where it's like the business of business owners,
Yes,
where
yes.
you're empowering every single person to think like a business owner. So I wish, dear listener, you could take a tour of Nick's Pizza and Pub, but because you can't and we're just verbally talking about it today, Nick, can you share like some of the succinct little details, like two of them that I want to find if we can, how people were actually accountable for their own compensation? So that's one. And then the tools you created to help people become better communicators. So can you
Mm.
highlight like the actual how and what of some of the details on those?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think I'll start in chronologically. Although I did at the very, very early days, I didn't like the feeling of people asking me for a raise. So I did start a program of what I call business as a school and started like a system where I thought people can get their own raises if I could create like a training program that helped people see a path of like I'm a rookie, a pro expert, or in martial arts to be, what's the first belt? Yellow, white,
White belt,
white,
blue
yellow.
belt, purple belt,
Yes,
brown belt, black belt. Yeah.
yes. So those are the what I had in mind. If people could do that. I wasn't very sophisticated at it, and it was kind of working. But what happened next was, when Rudy helped us with our purpose and values, he also had a communication tool that he called Safe Space that we started with. Since then, built on that and enhanced it with a couple other principles to it, we call it
Mhm.
intentional communication principles to
Awesome.
create safe space, to create a psychologically safe space. So that has 8 principles to it. And, it is a communication tool. None of it has anything to do with restaurants or pizza,
Mhm.
but it is, we teach in onboarding. We teach, the two tools we'll start in orientation is here's our purpose. How does it connect with you? Here's our values. How do they connect with you? And by the way, part of that process of using our values when you work at Nick's is if you have an issue or problem, what values do you fit to the solution, not issue problem, go to my boss solution, right?
Mhm.
So we teach that along with the intentional communication principles, the 8 principles there, and so that we can communicate effectively, get rid of drama, right? And so that's what we started with. And that tool actually has been very helpful, in so many different ways. But those are our foundation to, I think, a positive, an effective culture, a high performing culture. I don't know if you've seen Amy Edmondson's work from Harvard around psychological safety. She's got a great book called The Fearless Organization.
Cool.
And she talks about high performing teams. And at the foundation of high
Mhm.
performing teams is psychological safety. So, and I think the difference is for me, is I've been using these tools, right,
Mhm.
in the restaurants and having experiences of, oh, that didn't go so good. It's not the way it's supposed to work. you know, I
Yeah.
don't know if I told you about not so long ago, I had an experience with a busser and a server. These two young ladies. I'm at the host desk in the restaurant and I hear the voices elevate, behind me because they're the service stations like right behind the host desk. And I go around the corner, I go, what's going on? And one of them's in tears. And
Mm.
she's like, Sydney told me that, is telling me I need to do this and that. And it's not true. I've been working my butt off, and Alex is up, she's got tears as a busser. So, but again, that kind of stuff happens at work, right? And that's where that was one of the, so to get to my point is, so we teach these communication skills. We want to use them throughout our day, right? Throughout our life. And at the
Mhm.
same time, conflict happens anyhow, right?
Mhm.
So after the shift, we sit down and started to talk through, okay, what was the intention, Sydney, with what you said? Because what was the impact, Alex, for how that impacted you? And we have that, about the intention impact match or miss, actually, in this case. And I saw this young lady, the busser, Alex, she like won't face her. So it's things like that. It's like, okay, part of one of our principles is active listening. So in order to active listen, please, share up, face each other, eye contact, talk through this, take a deep breath, right? Hear each other, really listen. And So again, that principle wasn't part of our work a few years back. And I learned that it had to be. So all these
Yeah.
communication tools were in there, but not one about listening. And here's why, right? We
Mhm.
got to have that ability to listen to each other in order to build that trust.
Mhm.
So that's my point. It's like all this stuff has kind of happened through real experiences.
Experience. Yeah, real things happening to real people. That's good.
Mm-hmm.
And so I appreciate you kind of sharing that to help that moment come to life and the tools that now that you have the active listening tools on top of everything else. And what are some of the other like eight, I'm sure might not have them all memorized exactly, but like just curious about those practices and
Yeah. If anybody wants to write them down, intellectually, I'm sure they're easy to understand. Doing them is not always so easy. So one of them is I statements in our
Mhm.
society, especially nowadays. Think about a time when someone said to you, "You need to speak clearer. You need to do podcasts better." How does that feel, right? When someone has used the "you" word instead of "I noticed the ambiguity in your language."
Mm.
So make I statements. Back to your point about teaching personal accountability. When we use I statements, for one, we're creating more connection instead of a wall that goes up when I say you, the word you instead of I. And I'm also valuing my own accountability in my part of the conversation. So I statements is another one of those principles, right? Really effective. Probably the most impactful game changer principle when I teach managers is called, we call it track data points, facts. Track data, be aware of meaning making. So our minds as human beings, we make meaning. That's going to happen. It's okay. The downside of what we do is we make up stories on our past experiences that might not be true right now.
Mhm.
So, and then we tell somebody something or we give them direction to go do something based on a past experience, and it's not grounded in facts or data points. So we make judgments on people or things that need to happen, ill-informed on our own stuff. So teaching that principle around how to understand and discern with data points versus making meaning off of subjective feelings is very valuable. That's another principle.
Yeah, that's like a deep spiritual practice right there. It's checking how many stories you have and perspectives that you're creating.
Well, there is a theme in all these around self awareness, right? For sure.
Hmm.
100%. My truth, my experience, multiple truths is the other one. Inside out, outside in. So my voice, having the courage to bring my inside voice out or keeping my outside voice in support of others is another one. We also have one that's a little bit more fun around the moose in the room, name the moose in the room. Same as elephant in the room, only has less syllables. The moose in the room, which I think you've heard before.
I have, and that was your mascot at
Yeah,
Nick's.
our
That makes
moose
sense.
activity, yeah. Also, another one is how I communicate. What gets taken in communication is 7%, 45%, 48%
Hmm.
of our communication. So those three are words, body language, tone of voice. So 7, 45, 48 is a principle, and paying attention to the alignment of our 45, 48, which
Hmm.
means sarcasm doesn't work very well if you want to build trust in a relationship, right? As a leader.
Hmm.
How many I
It
lost
was
track?
such a great highlight that how much words aren't what get heard as much as everything else. You
Yes,
know?
yes, it's 100% true. It was a study done by University of Michigan. Anyhow, those are the principles. Did I get them all? No, I don't know. I don't have them in front of
Well,
me.
that's okay. No, that's good detail.
Yeah,
And to just like, this is just one little piece of what you offered in terms of like the tools for safe space and intentional communication.
it is. It
And then,
is. There's actually in our trust and so what is trust and track leadership, right? So trust and track leadership came out of this coaching mentality. I want to be a coach as our managers, as a leader myself. Like, how can I be the most effective coach?
mhm.
And when Bo Burlingham came and did the article about us in Inc. magazine, he's the one who said, "Nick, I wrote the book Small Giants. I'm writing about businesses, and I noticed a theme between you and Zingerman's, and he named off a whole bunch of Jack Stack's company. Because you guys are all have this like coaching first mentality. In other words, you trust your people first. And that's true. That's what trust comes from. Trust meaning that we're starting from a place of people want to do their best. So we trust that they're doing their best, right? So we're going to come with that perspective in mind as we coach. And along with the trust, it doesn't mean we just trust and hope everything is beautiful, because that's not life, right?
Mm.
We're going to trust that our team is doing our best, and we're going to track their behaviors. And I don't mean track data sheets or numbers. I mean track human behaviors. And as we're tracking human behaviors, we're going to either celebrate those behaviors; those are perfectly in alignment with the expectation, your performance, our purpose, our value, right? So we're either going to celebrate or course correct those behaviors. That's our choice. And we're going to coach in the moment throughout the day. That's at the core of trust and track leadership. And
Mm-hmm.
that just came out of my own work and our own experience, organically grew, and people kept asking me about it. Show me how to do this. And it is of four components: that intentional communication principles, one. The other one is a feedback framework. We have three different types of feedback loop, performance feedback, direct feedback. The other is four types of coaching. So, think of archetypes. You can approach coaching from four different archetypal ways. You could tell people what to do, or you could guide them. So we have four different ways to do that. And then the other, pretty well known, I think, is Cartman's drama triangle. Using Cartman's drama triangle kind of as a map for how
And
we.
just speak to like the triangle for any listeners who don't know it.
Yeah, Cartman Triangle. Stephen Cartman, which is an amazing guy. He shares this. You can Google it. He shares this work, but he starts with the triangle being positions that we take in our minds about
Mm-hmm.
an interaction, right? So I might be a victim. At the bottom of the triangle is victim, and then the top two corners, one is controller perpetrator, kind of the person who is instigator or perpetrating some conflict, and then the other is rescuer. Save the day. Let me fix things for everybody. So that's a drama, what Cartman calls a drama game. So it's a good map in support of, okay, let's get out of the drama game, be present. So these are great
And
emotional intelligence tools, really.
yeah. And is there a way that what do you do to help elevate out of that triangle and get into something different? Like when you notice that you're in that, what's the next step?
Yeah, the short, sweet answer is be present right now. Notice that we're in a game. So if we're talking about the way things you should have did this, that's past, right? Or, oh no, the world's crashing, that's future. Okay, what do we need to do right now? Get rid of the drama words. Say, okay, that might be true, or maybe that's going to happen. Okay, right now we need to do this. How could I support you, Catherine, in moving forward right now? What's the action that needs to be taken here and now? That's the short, sweet answer to it.
I love that.